Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Julia Kim. Here's what's coming up on the programme today. Tensions rise in Iraq after the attempted assassination of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi. The Arab League steps in to try to resolve the diplomatic row between Lebanon and Saudi Arabia, the rift exacerbating Lebanon's collapsing economy. And hitting the airwaves in Hebrew and in English, we'll tell you more about a new Palestinian radio station made for Israelis. But first, we begin in Iraq, where tensions are rife in the aftermath of the assassination attempt on Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi. He escaped unhurt when 3 drones carrying explosives targeted his home on Sunday. Iraqi security officials believe at least one Iran-backed militia is responsible. The attack comes after pro-Iran factions denounced the results of last month's general election.
Gunfire and explosions rang out over Baghdad's fortified green zone early on Sunday, the 7th of November. The army said 3 bomb-laden drones targeted the Prime Minister's residence there. 2 were shot down, 1 managed to detonate, several bodyguards were wounded. This is what remained of a vehicle parked at the residence in what was an assassination attempt on the Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi.
Cowardly missiles and drones do not build our nation or our future. We're working on building our nation, on respecting the state and its establishments, and securing a better future for all Iraqis.
The attack took place as the country's political parties are negotiating governing coalitions following parliamentary elections held in early October. Tensions have been growing since then as the Fatah alliance of the predominantly Shiite paramilitary Hashed al-Shabi pro-Iran group refuses to accept the election results after suffering a major loss of seats. Party supporters had clashed with police during a protest to demand a vote recount 2 days earlier. At least 1 protester was killed. One participant in a sit-in against the election results blamed the authorities.
They did this to distract people from what happened last Friday, when they killed innocent people who went onto the street to demand their legitimate and democratic rights.
With Baghdad pointing the finger for Sunday's attack on at least one Iran-backed militia group, Tehran said those responsible must be found.
The path to stability in Iraq relies on such cooperation and the rule of law. So we must accommodate the right conditions so the appropriate Iraqi legal organizations can perform the investigations required.
Security has been beefed up. The UN Security Council, meanwhile, has called for perpetrators and sponsors of the attack on the Prime Minister to be brought to justice.
The Arab League has said that Lebanon's information minister should resign to defuse a diplomatic row with the Gulf states. The League's Assistant Secretary General, Hossam Zaki, said talks with the Lebanese officials to heal the rift were positive. The Gulf states cut ties after footage emerged of Minister George Qadahi criticizing the Saudi-led coalition's war against Houthi rebels in Yemen. He's refused multiple calls to step down. Well, Lebanon is desperate to re-establish ties with Saudi Arabia and its neighbours. The row has brought more economic misery to the cash-strapped country. Delano D'Souza tells us more.
It's a fresh blow to Lebanon's already flagging economy. A recent decision by Saudi Arabia to halt imports from the country has already started to bite. Local businesses like this one say they're reeling.
We spent years getting clients in Saudi Arabia. We saw the need and did a market study and worked on everything clients needed. To just stop it this way is not acceptable and not allowed. Not for them, not for us. They're tired and so are we. It's a loss for both, not only for us.
But while the decision to halt Lebanese imports to Riyadh came all of a sudden, the trade crisis with Saudi Arabia has been brewing for months.
The crisis with Saudi started around 6 months ago. In April, Saudi banned Lebanese fruit and vegetables due to drugs being smuggled in shipments. They stopped importing food products and the situation was bad. We were trying to solve it in any way possible, but things have got complicated once again.
Around 10% of Lebanon's exports go to Saudi Arabia. The current ban could cost Beirut $300 million in lost revenue a year. Non-food exports include aluminium, gold and paints. And Lebanese businesses say while the situation was bad before, the current import ban have made things worse.
It's as if there is a plan to break the economic and industrial sectors in Lebanon. In addition to cutting the ties and connections between Lebanon and the world, and especially the Gulf and Saudi Arabia.
Lebanon's economy has been battered by the worst crisis in the country's history. The port explosion as well as the COVID-19 pandemic have amplified existing problems. The crisis with Saudi Arabia highlights the influence Riyadh has on Lebanon's economy. It also comes as preliminary talks with the International Monetary Fund for a revised financial recovery plan continue.
Well, to the Gaza Strip now, where Palestinian fishermen are struggling under the Israeli blockade. Israeli restrictions on the kinds of boats they can use have forced them to fish in the same small area of shallow water. Gaza's fishermen complain their livelihoods will no longer be viable. Nicholas Rushworth reports.
It's nightfall off the Gaza Strip and this Palestinian fisherman is heading out to sea. It's a perilous journey. He doesn't have the boat he wants or needs.
They let us fish up to 15 nautical miles, knowing we don't have machines or engines that allow us to go that far.
He and his crew stay much closer to shore in an area good for sardines, but not for the bigger value fish such as tuna. Israel controls the waters off Gaza and prevents the Palestinian fishermen from using modern trawler engines, arguing they could be used by smugglers.
This is a Volvo engine. It's made for cars. But we fishermen tweak the engines to make them work on our boats.
The catch is put on sale at dawn. It's been a good night for Mohammed. He gets just over 800 euros for half a ton of sardines. It's more than he hoped for, but it's barely profitable once his costs and crew's wages are deducted. The local fish merchants also say that they are struggling.
There are large shrimps, red snappers, mullets and groupers on sale here, but they are very expensive. We cannot afford to buy 1 kilo of groupers for 90 shekels or a kilo of shrimps for 70 shekels. It's expensive because of the economic situation, but we buy the fish to supply to restaurants and for export.
Despite the economic problems, thousands of families still depend on fishing in the Gaza Strip, where half the population of 2 million people are without a job.
Now, broadcasting in Hebrew and English, Jerusalem 24 is a new radio station by Palestinians for Israelis. Its mission is to offer Israelis a Palestinian perspective on the ongoing conflict between the two sides. Delano D'Souza has this.
Hello, it is 1:30 p.m. and you are listening to Jerusalem 24's top headlines.
He's one of the voices at Jerusalem 24. Mohammed Hamayel presents the news at this station in English, but not his native Arabic.
In 2020 alone, Israel targeted over 800 Palestinian-owned properties across the West Bank.
The Palestinian station also broadcasts in Hebrew, and according to the director of news operations, it's filling in a much-needed void.
There's a real lack in the diffusion of our political, economic, social and cultural news in English and Hebrew. It's the Israeli media that dominates the discussion on channels and in the global media.
Jerusalem 24's operation wouldn't be able to exist without the help of foreign funding. For this broadcaster based in the West Bank, no subject is considered taboo. The 6 journalists working here are equally comfortable holding their own government to account as they are with Israel's. Palestinian stories told by Palestinians from the West Bank was something that attracted this listener in Tel Aviv.
In Israel, there is only black and white. There is no culture, material. There is no listen, we are fighting, but try to come and listen to the concert. Try and come and read a book or see this poet. We don't know about this poet. We don't know about this concert.
This is the kind of media alternative David Havila says he's been looking for. Whenever he's in the car, Jerusalem 24's turned on.
I learned a lot of East Jerusalem and the bank and Gaza and a lot of things that I never knew about all the situation that happens there, poverty, about their needs, riots, arrests.
Jerusalem 24 wants to build on its early success, expand its listener base, and continue to provide a different side of the story.
And finally, this week, athletes from around the world gathered in Turkey for the 43rd edition of the Istanbul Marathon. It's the only road race in the world where runners can cross from Asia into Europe. There are 3 categories in the Intercontinental Marathon. The main stage, a grueling 42-kilometer run, starts near the Asian side of Martyrs Bridge on the Bosphorus River and ends at the historic Sultan Ahmet Square. This year's winners hailed from Kenya and Uganda. Both received a $35,000 prize. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Middle East Matters. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There's more world news coming up here on France 24.
عيب تسوقين سيارة، عيب تطلعين للمدرسة، عيب تداومين، عيب تشتغلين، هذا كله عيب، هو مو حرام.
In Iraq, neither the government nor the tribes defend the rights of women. They are victims of physical and emotional abuse and are often deprived of their right to choose.
العشيرة وسيلة ضغط على البنية، لأن إذا ما نفذت كلام العشيرة يحرضون أهلي عليه باعتبار بنتكم ما مسيطرين عليها.
But in this ultra-conservative society, and despite the risks involved, some women still dare to challenge the majority opinion in the name of freedom.
If you don't feel safe on your country, on your nation, on your home, where do you can find the fear?
Watch Iraq, the struggle for women's rights on France 24 and France24.com.